Picture yourself on a path of self-mastery, seeking wisdom and peace with every step you take. Alongside you walk others, travelers of the same road, some of whom uplift, while others weigh down your spirit. As you continue forward, you find not all companions are as they first appear. Some may mislead, some may distract, and others may even draw you away from your true purpose. Epictetus, a revered Stoic philosopher, once said, "The key is to keep company only with those who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." Stoicism teaches us the art of discerning those influences that align with our pursuit of virtue and resilience. Yet, as we know, life does not offer perfect circumstances, nor does it give us control over the behaviors of those around us. But how can we identify these types who might derail our growth? And when avoidance is impossible, what strategies can we employ to maintain our peace and focus? To answer these questions, let us follow the journey of Lucius, a thoughtful, curious man who desires to live in harmony with wisdom and virtue. Through his encounters, we will explore the 7 types of people Stoicism warns us about. Each will reveal insights, tactics, and lessons to help us avoid being swayed from our chosen path. By the end of our journey, you may find a piece of these types not only in others, but also within yourself. This story, then, is not only about navigating the world around us, but about refining the world within us. So, let us begin with our first cautionary character, the complainer. 1. The complainer, the never-ending drip of negativity. Our story begins with Lucius, a man known among his friends for his calm and balanced nature. Lucius is a patient listener and, as such, often finds himself at the receiving end of others' concerns. Among his colleagues, however, is Marcia, who seems to bring a shadow of dissatisfaction with her wherever she goes. No matter the situation, Marcia finds a fault, whether it's the chill in the office, her workload, or even the laughter of those around her. At first, Lucius approaches her grievances with understanding, thinking perhaps she's simply going through a difficult time. He sympathizes with her frustrations and tries to reassure her, but as days turn to weeks and weeks to months, he begins to notice that every interaction leaves him feeling just a little more drained. Marcia's complaints, though trivial at first, start to feel like drops of water against a stone, slowly wearing him down. Why does the complainer have such an effect? Here, Stoicism offers valuable insight. Imagine each complaint from Marcia as a drop of water. One drop is harmless, but a steady, unending drip can wear down even the hardest stone. Similarly, negativity, when encountered persistently, has the power to erode one's peace and focus if it's not carefully managed. Lucius begins to question himself. Should I allow myself to be so affected by Marcia's words? And this question leads him to the wisdom of the Stoics. According to Epictetus, our focus should remain on what lies within our control, and others' complaints are certainly outside that realm. The Stoic path calls us to release what is beyond our influence, thereby preserving our inner calm. But how can Lucius manage his interactions with Marcia in a way that doesn't leave him feeling drained? Strategies for dealing with the complainer. Determined to protect his peace, Lucius tries a few approaches. First, he limits his time around Marcia whenever possible, choosing instead to spend breaks with co-workers who uplift him. But in a shared workspace, he cannot avoid her entirely, and so he turns to the Stoic technique of mental distancing. When Marcia begins her familiar list of grievances, Lucius visualizes her complaints as nothing more than passing clouds, brief, loud, but ultimately unable to touch his inner stillness. Lucius also takes things a step further by subtly redirecting the conversation whenever possible. Instead of letting Marcia's complaints linger, he nudges the topic toward possible solutions. When she grumbles about the uncomfortable office chair, he suggests speaking to management for an adjustment. If she criticizes the quality of the break room coffee, he mentions a nearby cafe with better options. By refocusing the conversation on solutions, Lucius finds himself feeling lighter and more in control, and Marcia's negativity loses its effect on him. Stoic wisdom: safeguarding inner peace amid constant negativity. Reflecting on this experience, Lucius recalls the words of Marcus Aurelius: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Through his focus on his own reactions, Lucius begins to preserve his peace. Stoicism teaches that while we may not silence others' complaints, we can prevent them from disturbing our inner tranquility. Soon, Lucius notices a shift. Marcia's complaints persist, but they no longer drain him as before. In fact, he begins to appreciate the growth in his own patience as he learns to treat her negativity as external noise, a background sound he doesn't need to internalize. Have you ever encountered a Marcia in your life? Someone who seems to carry a storm cloud with them. How have you dealt with it? Perhaps, like Lucius, you could find value in the Stoic approach, training yourself to remain calm amid the clamor of complaints. 2. The drama magnet, the whirlwind of chaos. As Lucius continues his journey of self-mastery, he encounters yet another challenging personality, Tullia, an old friend who seems to live in a state of perpetual crisis. To Lucius, life is like a calm sea, best navigated with composure and foresight. But Tullia, her life is a storm, and wherever she goes, a whirlwind of conflict, excitement, and drama follows. Every time Lucius meets her, Tullia has a new conflict to share: a spat with her sister, a falling out with a friend, a disagreement at work. At first, Lucius finds her stories amusing, even captivating. He listens, thinking it's only a phase and that, surely, things will soon settle down. Yet, they never do. The stories grow louder, more complex, and somehow, Tullia always manages to pull Lucius into the eye of her storm. Why does the drama magnet draw us in? The allure of drama is a tricky thing. When Tullia shares her stories, Lucius finds himself caught between sympathy and curiosity. Part of him feels a duty to help, while another part is genuinely entertained by her tales. But slowly, he realizes that her crises are like a whirlpool. No matter how calm he feels, they start to draw him in, impacting his own peace. The Stoics teach us that true happiness lies not in excitement or conflict, but in a state of balanced calm. Lucius recalls a teaching from Seneca: true happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. Drama distracts us, keeps us constantly alert for the next conflict or crisis. It pulls us away from that essential stillness where real happiness lies. How then, Lucius wonders, can I engage with Tullia without being pulled into her endless turbulence? Strategies for dealing with the drama magnet. Lucius decides to try a few techniques to protect his peace. First, he practices a method called reflective listening. Instead of offering advice or becoming emotionally invested in Tullia's problems, he mirrors her words back to her. When she says, "I can't believe my sister said that to me," Lucius responds with, "It sounds like you're feeling hurt by her words." By doing this, he offers empathy without becoming a participant in her conflict. When Tullia presses him for advice, Lucius remains neutral, offering simple observations rather than solutions. He notices that this approach keeps him more centered, and Tullia seems to appreciate the empathy without dragging him further into her drama. But there are days when Tullia's crises seem endless, and Lucius feels the need to set firmer boundaries. He experiments with becoming selectively unavailable. During times when he knows he needs to focus on his own projects, he puts his phone on silent, declining her calls and messages until he has the mental space to engage. By creating focus periods free from her influence, he finds he can reclaim his peace and concentrate fully on his own life. Stoic wisdom, sailing calmly through life's storms. Reflecting on his encounters with Tullia, Lucius recalls the teachings of Stoicism on the value of peace and self-control. Seneca's words remind him that he does not need to become ensnared in the conflicts of others. Life, he realizes, will always contain drama and crises, but he can choose whether or not to make them his own. And so, Lucius returns to his path, no longer weighed down by Tullia's drama. He listens with compassion, but does not sacrifice his peace. In time, he notices a shift within himself, a calmness that remains even when chaos swirls around him. Have you ever known a Tullia in your life, someone who pulls you into their endless dramas? What techniques have you used to maintain your peace? Perhaps this Stoic approach can serve as a guide, allowing you to be present without being consumed by the turbulence of others. Shall we proceed with the next type, the Naysayer? 3. The Naysayer, the cloud of doubt and negativity. As Lucius continues along his journey of self-mastery, he meets a new companion on the path, Flavius, an old acquaintance known for his sharp mind, but also for his unwavering skepticism. Flavius always seems to cast a shadow over new ideas, quick to point out flaws and obstacles before considering possibilities. While Lucius appreciates constructive criticism, he soon realizes that Flavius is not offering helpful insights, but rather a steady stream of doubt. Lucius first encounters this negativity when he shares his idea of taking up a new creative project. "Are you sure about that?" Flavius asks, raising an eyebrow. "Most people don't succeed in that field. You could waste a lot of time." Lucius tries to explain his enthusiasm, but Flavius continues, listing all the reasons it might not work. After their conversation, Lucius feels a pang of uncertainty that wasn't there before. His once bright vision of the project now seems a bit clouded. Why does the Naysayer impact us so deeply? Stoicism teaches us that our thoughts shape our reality. When someone like Flavius plants seeds of doubt, these thoughts, if left unexamined, can grow and cloud our ambitions. Marcus Aurelius once advised, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When exposed to constant negativity, even the most self-assured individuals may begin to see their dreams and goals in a dimmer light. Lucius realizes that if he doesn't guard his mind, he risks letting others' doubts weaken his resolve. But Stoicism also encourages openness to wise counsel. Lucius wonders, how can I distinguish between helpful critique and harmful pessimism? He decides he must find a way to interact with Flavius that allows for constructive exchange without letting doubt overshadow his own vision. Strategies for dealing with the Naysayer. Determined to protect his aspirations, Lucius adopts a few strategies. First, he begins by seeking advice rather than simply sharing his goals. When he next discusses his project with Flavius, he asks, "If you were in my position, what would you do to make this succeed?" By positioning Flavius as a mentor, Lucius finds that Flavius becomes more helpful, providing constructive suggestions rather than merely pointing out flaws. However, Lucius knows that he cannot always prevent Flavius from voicing doubts, so he tries another technique called positive confrontation. When Flavius says, "But what if you fail?" Lucius counters with, "That's an interesting perspective. How do you think someone could make this work?" In this way, he reframes the conversation, encouraging Flavius to consider possibilities rather than just obstacles. By engaging him in problem-solving, Lucius is able to deflect the negativity while keeping the conversation constructive. Finally, Lucius realizes that there will always be doubters, so he decides to practice selective absorption. He listens to Flavius's points, but only absorbs what he finds genuinely useful. He keeps in mind that, as a Stoic, He is responsible for his own mindset and vision. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Rather than letting Flavius's doubts alter his enthusiasm, he chooses to internalize only what aligns with his goals. Stoic insights, guarding your vision from doubt. After several conversations with Flavius, Lucius feels a renewed sense of strength. The doubts still come, but he no longer feels burdened by them. Instead, he regards them as external voices that need not impact his inner resolve. By choosing carefully what to absorb, Lucius maintains his confidence in his own vision, protecting it from the shade of doubt. In time, Lucius completes his project, looking back with gratitude that he did not let others' skepticism deter him. He realizes that Stoicism doesn't mean ignoring criticism, but instead discerning between what is valuable and what is merely a reflection of others' fears. Have you encountered a Flavius in your life, someone whose doubts made you question your own ambitions? How did you handle it? Perhaps this Stoic approach will serve you well, reminding you to maintain your vision while allowing only helpful counsel to shape your path. Shall we proceed with the next type? The victim. 4. The victim, the perpetual tale of woe. As Lucius advances in his journey of self-reflection and growth, he crosses paths with another familiar figure, Cassia, an old friend from his university days. Cassia is intelligent, warm, and insightful, yet her outlook on life has become increasingly pessimistic over the years. Every time they meet, Lucius finds himself listening to a new tale of misfortune. She shares stories of misunderstandings at work, failed friendships, and the many ways life seems to conspire against her. Lucius, compassionate by nature, initially listens intently, offering support and advice. But he soon realizes a pattern. No matter the circumstances, Cassia always attributes her troubles to external forces, a difficult manager, an untrustworthy friend, an unfair situation. She seems locked in a narrative where she is the constant victim, perpetually at the mercy of events beyond her control. Why does the victim's mindset affect us? Stoicism teaches us that we are ultimately responsible for how we respond to life's challenges. While there are certainly genuine hardships, Stoics believe that viewing oneself as powerless leads to stagnation and self-pity rather than growth. As Lucius observes Cassia's ongoing complaints, he notices that her mindset is subtly contagious. He finds himself feeling frustrated and sometimes even resentful, as he spends hours trying to encourage her only to see her revert to the same outlook. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one." Lucius realizes that while he can empathize with Cassia, he cannot change her mindset for her. This is something she must do on her own. But how can he show support without letting himself be dragged into her narrative of defeat? Strategies for dealing with the victim. Lucius decides to approach his interactions with Cassia more mindfully. First, he practices what Stoics call compassionate detachment. He shows genuine empathy, listening to her concerns and acknowledging her feelings. But rather than offering advice or trying to save her, he gently refrains from jumping into her problems. He offers emotional support, but without allowing himself to become her constant problem solver. He also sets boundaries around their interactions. When Cassia begins to discuss her latest grievances, Lucius listens patiently but gently steers the conversation toward possible solutions. If she mentions an issue with her manager, he asks, "What do you think you could try to improve things?" By encouraging her to consider her own role in her challenges, Lucius helps her shift the focus from blaming others to looking for practical solutions. At times, however, Lucius finds it difficult to deflect Cassia's negativity. He recalls a Stoic technique known as objective viewing, the practice of mentally stepping back from a situation to see it with a fresh, impartial perspective. When Cassia's complaints become overwhelming, Lucius reminds himself that her narrative is her own. He does not have to internalize it, nor is he responsible for changing it. Stoic insights: resisting the pull of victimhood. As he reflects on these encounters, Lucius draws strength from a teaching by Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it, that matters. Cassia's story reminds him that we are the authors of our own narratives. By choosing a victim mindset, one forfeits personal agency, blaming external circumstances rather than embracing the power of response. Lucius learns that by showing Cassia compassion but not indulging her victimhood, he is preserving his own peace and offering her an example of resilience. In time, Lucius finds himself less affected by Cassia's woes. He still cares deeply for her, but he no longer feels obligated to immerse himself in her challenges. His compassion remains, but his own tranquility is protected. He accepts that he cannot control her perspective, only his response to it. Have you encountered a Cassia in your life, someone who often casts themselves as the victim of their own story? How have you handled such situations? Perhaps Stoic techniques like compassionate detachment and objective viewing can help you maintain your own peace while offering support without becoming entangled in the narrative of others. Shall we proceed with the next type, the toxic positivist? 5. The toxic positivist, a rose-colored lens that blinds. As Lucius continues on his Stoic journey, he encounters another familiar personality, Emilia, a former colleague known for her unrelenting optimism. At first glance, Emilia's positivity seems refreshing. She always has a smile on her face, an uplifting quote ready to share, and an encouraging word for everyone around her. But over time, Lucius notices something curious. Emilia's cheerfulness never allows room for complexity. Every conversation is quickly turned toward the positive, even when the situation calls for reflection, caution, or understanding of difficult emotions. One day, Lucius shares with her a challenging experience he recently faced, the passing of a dear friend. As he begins to express his feelings of sadness and loss, Emilia interjects with a bright smile, saying, "At least you had the chance to know him. You should focus on the good memories and be happy." Lucius feels a pang of frustration. He knows that gratitude is important, but he also understands that grieving is a natural and necessary process. Emilia's relentless positivity makes him feel as though his sadness is somehow invalid, as if anything less than happiness is a failure. Why does toxic positivity feel so disconnected? Stoicism teaches us that life must be accepted in its fullness, both the highs and the lows. To live well means to face reality as it is, not to gloss over it with a cheerful lens. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs." True wisdom embraces all aspects of life, the joy and the sorrow, the triumphs and the struggles. When Emilia constantly insists that Lucius just be happy, he realizes that her approach doesn't allow room for authentic emotions. This brand of positivity, Stoicism would argue, is not resilience, it's avoidance. Lucius begins to wonder, how can I honor my own experience without being overshadowed by Emilia's insistence on happiness? Strategies for dealing with the toxic positivist. Determined to stay true to his own Stoic values, Lucius begins to use a few techniques to handle Emilia's one-sided optimism. First, he practices emotional granularity, a skill often encouraged by Stoic thinkers. Emotional granularity means acknowledging and naming specific feelings rather than reducing them to simple labels like good or bad. When he speaks with Emilia, he allows himself to express emotions like sadness, gratitude, and even frustration in a balanced way. If she says, "Look on the bright side," Lucius responds gently, "I am grateful for the good times, but I also need to honor this sadness." Both emotions can coexist. In doing so, Lucius maintains his authenticity without being swept away by her positivity. He also begins to notice that Amelia, rather than offering true comfort, is simply avoiding difficult topics. Rather than dismissing her, Lucius decides to engage her in a more meaningful discussion. When she says, "Just focus on the positive," Lucius replies, "It's wonderful to be grateful, but it's also okay to acknowledge what's hard. Happiness doesn't mean ignoring what's painful." Lastly, Lucius sets gentle boundaries. He realizes that there are moments when he needs to express himself openly without interference from Amelia's well-intentioned but shallow cheerfulness. When he needs to share something deeply personal, he chooses to speak with friends who understand the importance of a balanced perspective. By setting these boundaries, he respects both his own emotional process and Amelia's tendency toward positivity. Stoic wisdom, embracing life in its fullness. Reflecting on his interactions with Amelia, Lucius recalls the Stoic understanding of amor fati, the love of one's fate, a willingness to embrace life in all its forms. Seneca once said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." Lucius realizes that true happiness, according to Stoicism, is not about forcing constant positivity, but rather about accepting life as it is. By honoring both joy and sorrow, he finds a peace that is more profound than any fleeting happiness. In time, Lucius notices a change in himself. While he still appreciates Amelia's cheerful nature, he no longer feels pressured to match her constant optimism. Instead, he finds solace in embracing life's full range, knowing that each experience, joyful or sorrowful, is part of the journey toward inner tranquility. Have you ever encountered an Amelia in your life, someone who insists on perpetual positivity? How did you respond? Perhaps Stoic practices like emotional granularity and acceptance will guide you, allowing you to experience life in its entirety without sacrificing authenticity. Shall we proceed with the next type, the manipulator? 6. The manipulator, the subtle puppet master. As Lucius progresses on his journey of self-discovery and Stoic practice, he encounters a figure whose influence is both subtle and unsettling, Octavian, an old friend known for his charm and cleverness. On the surface, Octavian appears generous and considerate, always quick with a compliment or a favor. Yet, over time, Lucius begins to notice something peculiar. Whenever they spend time together, he often finds himself doing things he hadn't planned or agreeing to favors he wouldn't normally agree to. For instance, Octavian frequently invites Lucius to dine at the finest places in town. But when the bill arrives, Octavian skillfully deflects, hinting at a difficult month or a large, unexpected expense. Lucius, out of a sense of friendship, covers the cost without much thought. But as this pattern repeats, he begins to feel that his generosity is being taken for granted. Octavian never directly asks for favors. He simply maneuvers situations to his advantage, subtly pulling Lucius's strings without him even realizing it. Why is the manipulator so difficult to recognize? The Stoics taught that while generosity and kindness are virtues, they should be given freely and without coercion. Manipulators, however, exploit these virtues, twisting situations in ways that can feel harmless but slowly erode one's autonomy. Epictetus warned, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." Manipulators often operate in gray areas, making it difficult to see their intentions clearly. Lucius realizes that if he isn't careful, he risks becoming a pawn in someone else's plans. But how can he remain kind without letting himself be used? This question leads Lucius to search for ways to interact with Octavian without sacrificing his own independence. Strategies for dealing with the manipulator. Lucius decides to try a few approaches to address Octavian's subtle influence. First, he practices what Stoics call fogging. This technique involves acknowledging any true aspects of what the manipulator says, but refusing to be moved by any emotional appeals or guilt-tripping. When Octavian remarks, "You're always so generous, Lucius. I wish I could do the same," Lucius responds calmly, "Yes, generosity is important to me." By neither agreeing nor disagreeing, he acknowledges Octavian's compliment without allowing it to sway his behavior. Next, Lucius sets boundaries and begins to assert them. The next time they dine together, Lucius is prepared. When the bill arrives and Octavian hesitates, Lucius suggests, "Let's split the bill today. That way, it's fair for both of us." By doing so, he keeps his tone friendly but sets a clear expectation. To his surprise, Octavian agrees without protest, and Lucius feels a new sense of control over his own decisions. Finally, Lucius recognizes that he must be comfortable with saying no when Octavian's requests feel forced. When Octavian invites him to yet another elaborate outing, hinting that it would be meaningful for him to attend, Lucius declines politely, saying, "I appreciate the invitation, but I already have other plans." By choosing not to justify or explain, Lucius maintains his boundaries without feeling pressured to meet Octavian's expectations. Stoic wisdom: reclaiming control over your own actions. Reflecting on his interactions with Octavian, Lucius recalls Epictetus's words, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In setting boundaries and occasionally declining, Lucius risks Octavian's disapproval. Yet he realizes that protecting his own autonomy is worth the discomfort. Stoicism teaches that our actions should stem from our own values, not from the subtle influence of others. Over time, Lucius feels a sense of liberation. He no longer feels pressured or manipulated, and his friendship with Octavian becomes more balanced. By maintaining his independence, he learns to interact with others on his own terms, choosing generosity only when it aligns with his values, not out of obligation or subtle persuasion. Have you encountered an Octavian in your life, someone whose charm and subtle influence led you to act against your better judgment? Perhaps Stoic techniques like fogging and boundary setting will guide you, helping you reclaim control over your choices and interactions. Shall we proceed with the final type, the time vampire? 7. The time vampire, the silent thief of hours. As Lucius advances in his quest for wisdom and tranquility, he encounters one final figure who, though benign at first glance, slowly drains his energy. Maximus, a friendly but overly talkative co-worker. Maximus has a habit of dropping by Lucius's desk unannounced, launching into lengthy conversations about trivial topics. Whether it's the latest office gossip, plans for the weekend, or a series of unimportant updates, Maximus fills Lucius's work hours with endless chatter, breaking his focus and leaving him feeling drained by the end of the day. At first, Lucius listens patiently, thinking it's harmless. But as the interruptions continue, he realizes that Maximus's constant presence is affecting his productivity and, more importantly, his sense of peace. Lucius finds himself struggling to complete his work and feeling resentful over the time he's lost. He begins to understand that his time is as precious as any other resource and that he must guard it carefully if he wishes to use it meaningfully. Why does the time vampire impact us so much? The Stoics valued time as one of life's most irreplaceable assets. Seneca once wrote, "Life, if well lived, is long enough." Yet the time vampire subtly erodes this valuable resource. leaving us feeling frustrated and unfulfilled. Unlike more overt forms of manipulation, a time vampire's impact is quiet and often goes unnoticed until we realize how much time has slipped away. Lucius understands that Maximus doesn't mean any harm, yet his frequent interruptions are a significant obstacle to Lucius's focus. He begins to wonder, how can I be respectful and friendly without sacrificing my time? Inspired by Stoic teachings, he considers how he might set boundaries and protect his precious hours. Strategies for dealing with the time vampire. To reclaim his time, Lucius tries a few strategies that allow him to maintain a courteous relationship with Maximus while preserving his productivity. First, he experiments with what is known as the Pomodoro technique, a time management method that involves working in focused intervals with short breaks in between. During these intervals, Lucius makes it clear that he is not to be disturbed, politely excusing himself from conversations with Maximus. If Maximus approaches, Lucius gently mentions, "I'm in the middle of something right now, but let's catch up later." By setting these focus periods, he effectively minimizes interruptions without offending his colleague. Another approach Lucius tries is planned availability. He designates specific times in his day when he is more open to chatting, and at other times, he actively avoids situations where Maximus might seek him out. If he needs to work undisturbed, he uses a quiet space away from his usual desk, subtly signaling his intent to focus. This way, he balances moments of sociability with his need for solitude. Finally, Lucius practices the art of the polite decline. When Maximus invites him to social gatherings or events that don't align with his interests, Lucius responds with a simple, "Thank you for inviting me, but I won't be able to make it." By declining without elaborate excuses, he respects his own time without risking offense. Stoic wisdom, honoring time as a sacred resource. Reflecting on his interactions with Maximus, Lucius draws inspiration from Seneca's teachings on time. Seneca advises that we treat our time with the same respect we give to wealth, since it is something we can never recover once it is lost. Lucius realizes that protecting his time is not selfish. It is an essential part of living a life aligned with his values and goals. Over time, Lucius finds a new rhythm. His boundaries allow him to work productively, pursue his interests, and connect meaningfully with friends and colleagues on his own terms. He feels a renewed sense of control over his days, aware that each hour he guards is an investment in his own growth and contentment. Have you ever encountered a Maximus in your life? Someone whose constant interruptions seemed harmless at first, but gradually wore down your time and energy. Perhaps, as Lucius discovered, a Stoic approach can help you protect your time while remaining kind and respectful. As Lucius reflects on his journey through these encounters, he realizes that Stoicism has taught him not only to recognize challenging personalities, but also to look inward. Stoic philosophy encourages us to discern, to guard our peace, and to engage with others mindfully, all while aligning our actions with our values. In these encounters with the complainer, the drama magnet, the naysayer, the victim, the toxic positivist, the manipulator, and the time vampire, Lucius has learned that we are defined by the company we keep and by the boundaries we set. Stoicism does not teach us to judge or reject others, but to engage wisely and with purpose, understanding that our reactions are within our control even when others are not. What lessons have you drawn from your own encounters with these types of people? Have you found Stoic practices helpful in navigating challenging relationships? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this exploration resonated with you, consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with others on the path of self-discovery and growth. Thank you for joining us, and may your journey be guided by wisdom, resilience, and peace.